I thank Lee for organizing today's program. I will restrict my talk today basically to the Consumer Protection Act and its relevance to COVID-19 because the situation as of today is quite unique and quite different. What we find is that in the current scenario, the government itself is so confused that day to day it is issuing different sets of instructions. Consequently, by the time you understand the implication of one set of instructions, those become redundant. Let me give you an example. Initially, doctors were asked to screen patients before attending to them for COVID. So they used to issue digital prescriptions over WhatsApp or email asking the patient to get himself checked for COVID. Later, the government changed that and said that doctor must personally examine the patient before referring him for a test. I suppose this is because there is a shortage of testing kits available. No matter what the reason, doctors started fearing that if they examine patients who might turn out to be COVID positive, then they would themselves get infected. Once they are infected, they would be the fastest carrier of transmission to other patients because a sick patient suffers low immunity. So doctors still avoided attending to patients and tried to hold teleconsultations or video consultations. Of course, even there, doctors were apprehensive whether they would get paid their fees because the patient is nowhere near. And in a country like ours, the public at large, the citizens at large, do not have net banking, they are not tech savvy. Another aspect was that the fear was so much that for each follow-up, certain doctors started asking for a repeat test to be done. Now what happens? Let me give you a concrete example. Of course, today the government has come out with a new set of directions saying that only the nodal municipal officer can order a test for COVID. But what is happening is, I'll give you the instance of a particular patient who is over 75 years old. When she had to consult a doctor for pancreatic cancer, she was asked to undergo this test. Within a span of few days, the doctor decided that the line of treatment would be chemotherapy. So once again, she was asked to undergo this test. The chemotherapy had a reaction. So to consult the doctor, the third time she was asked to undergo a test, all within a span of 1 week. Each test costs nothing less than 4,500. And the patient who travels for getting the test done becomes more vulnerable to getting infected. As of today, because of the situation, the family is getting these tests done. What will be the scenario once the situation improves and normalcy returns? The same family can and might sue the doctor for subjecting the patient to needless tests, needless harassment. So this is one dimension of the thing where a panic reaction causes more hardship, puts the patient to expense, and that amounts to an unfair trade practice. The situation is so tense, if I may put it that way, that a doctor does not even bother to think that a healthy patient may go out for a test and while coming back may contract the infection. So it does not mean that a person who is tested negative for COVID would still continue to be negative when he or she consults the doctor. So this is where there will be litigation where people will file cases against the doctors for claiming a reimbursement of the expenses they were needlessly subjected to. The second situation is where hospitals are rejecting and refusing to grant admission. In fact, the Supreme Court has very clearly laid down in the case of Paramanand Katara that the right to life is extremely important. Even monetary consideration cannot prevail over the requirement for giving treatment to a patient. Given the scenario, a patient who is turned away by a hospital and who dies can definitely sue the hospital and the doctors for refusing to give treatment in case of an emergency. Today, the situation is such that people who are suffering from COVID are recovering, but many people are dying due to other diseases than COVID. Heart ailments, diabetes, renal failure. There are a number of reasons, and these people who are dying due to lack of medical facilities, shortage of medical facilities, are likely to sue the hospital once the situation improves. If a patient tries to get an ambulance, it becomes difficult for patients to get an ambulance. The reason is that many of the drivers have already tried to run away before the lockdown, or they are not reporting to work, or they are afraid to come to work. So even if a patient wants an ambulance, it is very difficult to get an ambulance. If the ambulance is made available and the patient is granted admission, the way certain hospitals bill is another thing that is going to raise lots of disputes. Just a few days back, there was a reported case which already has gone to certain lawyers, is where a patient was given a bill of 16 lakh rupees for treatment and the patient expired due to COVID. Now let us consider a situation. The bill for the very first day shows several expenses, including 2.5 lakhs, a lump sum amount of 2.5 lakhs towards miscellaneous expenses. What do you mean by miscellaneous expenses? Can there be expenses which are so high as to be clubbed as miscellaneous expenses in just one shot of 2.5 lakhs? These issues have already been raised and a case is in the pipeline. Once it goes to court, it will have to be seen what sort of a defense the hospital would have. Other dimension, apart from the patient, is that of doctors. Doctors and healthcare professionals are threatened. They are often beaten up. There is panic. They feel that they are running a risk of attending to patients. And yet, instead of understanding the plight, societies are trying to pressurize doctors to stay away and reside elsewhere. So a doctor who is trying to save life is often mistreated by the society members in the society where he resides. So the frustration level among doctors is increasing. That frustration vents itself in the form of his behavior towards the patient. So the patients feel aggrieved that the doctor is not treating him with the kind of behavior that is expected of a doctor. So mutually, patients are against doctors, doctors are against patients. Also, a doctor cannot function on his own. He requires nurses, he requires IRs, he requires support staff, he requires infrastructure. The infrastructure is on the brink of crumbling. So if a patient dies due to lack of infrastructure, even if treated, who would be responsible for that? There will come a time when these issues will be raised. Currently, they are not being raised because people cannot move about freely. But believe me, once the situation improves, the frustration level will vent itself in the form of more and more litigation against doctors. We are already seeing an exodus of migrant laborers. Now, who are these migrant workers? They are the backbone of an industry. If any medicine is to be loaded onto trucks, who does that? It is these migrant workers. These migrant workers are today left without any source of livelihood. They do not have food to eat. The moment they can, they will flee from urban areas. So how will the economy revive? Once there are these problems, they will continue to last for a long time. Medication will not be available. So once again, we will go around in a circle where a doctor may not be able to treat a patient, and industry may not be able to provide the infrastructure required for attending to its consumers. If we consider several other aspects of regular day-to-day contracts, let us say an electrician who attends to the wiring in your home, or you have annual maintenance contract where the mechanic comes to repair your air conditioner, a mechanic comes to repair your computer. Many of these people also will have flown and left for their native places when the situation becomes a little more stable. They will be apprehensive of coming back. In the absence of availability of manpower, what will happen to the maintenance contracts which you already have? You have paid for the contract, but you will not get the service which you want. Consequently, there will be disputes, more and more cases will be filed by consumers for deficiency in service, And that could be defended by saying that it was due to circumstances beyond the control. Of course, it remains to be seen whether a court would accept that sort of a plea once the situation returns to normal. But the fact is that there will be a state in litigation. This matter became such a heated topic that finally it was referred to the Director General of Civil Aviation. Fortunately, he has stepped in and he has said that the airline can allow a person to travel later within a year. But if a traveler insists on getting a refund, then the airline cannot deny the refund to him. Once again, this looks very nice on paper. If there is a liquidity crisis and the airlines cannot refund the amount, what is going to happen? It will result in litigation. So the more you look at it from any dimension, you will find that there will be a spurt in litigation once the situation becomes a little better. Situation better meaning in terms of death and hospitalization due to COVID-19. Already the Supreme Court has said that limitation would not be an issue. The period which is spent during the lockdown will not be considered for the purpose of computing the limitation period. So limitation will continue and people can file the cases as and when the situation improves. This would be for new cases. Even for existing cases, let us say the Consumer Protection Act, it specifies that reply has to be filed within 30 days or an extension of 15 days, so total 45 days. What if the reply is not filed within 45 days? The National Commission, considering the situation, has passed an order saying that the period of the lockdown will not be considered for the purpose of computing the limitation period. But it will require business houses to keep a track and see that once the lockdown ends, the reply has to be filed within the stipulated time frame. Once again, just now, I came across an item in certain medico-legal groups where the government of Maharashtra has passed an order saying that all doctors, whether allopathic or non-allopathic, belonging to the Ayush system, homeopath, Ayurveda, whoever they may be, all of them have to mandatorily give service of 15 days in a COVID setup, or they would have to face the risk of being suspended and disqualified. There are several doctors who have comorbidities who are above 55 years of age. They are exempted. But what about the remaining? They are not exempted. Now, what would happen in a situation where a homeopathic doctor or an Ayurvedic doctor gives quinine, which is an allopathic drug, to a COVID patient? The government has asked the doctors to treat the patient. What does the law say? The law clearly says that cross-pathy is not permitted. So if a non-allopathic doctor administers allopathic medicine to a patient, it is negligence per se. By itself, no further proof is required. It is negligence. So these doctors are likely to face adverse litigation, even though they would be sticking out their necks and risking their lives. Once again, more and more litigation. The other thing is that insurance as an industry. Now there will be several policies which will be maturing during the period of the lockdown. What happens to those policies? If the renewal premium is not paid in time, then the policy expires. If it is renewed subsequently after the lockdown, then there would be a break in insurance. So it will be treated as a fresh policy. Now, to overcome this situation, the Government of India, Ministry of Finance, has issued a circular. This circular says that the period for paying the premium will be extended by the period of the lockdown till 3rd May. It will be considered a grace period. 3rd May has expired. It's already gone by. But a fresh notification so far has not been issued. Let us assume that the notification will be issued. What will be the consequences? If a notification is issued about renewal of the policy after the lockdown ends, it means that the policy has to be renewed so that it is considered to be in continuity. What if the person dies in between? Can you renew the policy of a dead person? The answer is no. What if a fire policy expires and the property gets burnt during the lockdown? Can you renew a policy for a property which is burnt and no longer in existence? The answer is again no. So linking up the continuation of the policy to its subsequent renewal is going to result in total chaos. It would have been preferable to word the notification saying that the policy is deemed to be extended for a period of the lockdown. Another aspect to this is that if we consider the floods which occurred on 26th July a few years ago, although there were certain directives from the government, the insurance companies raised various technical objections. During the period of the lockdown, what would be the technical objection for renewal? If we consider the provisions of Section 64VB of the Insurance Act, this section very clearly says that payment of premium is a condition precedent for undertaking any risk. If premium is not paid in advance, risk cannot be undertaken. So if the renewal premium is paid after a break, after the lockdown ends, can the policy be revived retrospectively from the date of its expiry? The answer would be a clear-cut no. So this would mean that the notification is in violation of the Insurance Act. if the insurance company were to refuse to honor a claim and the matter goes to court, what would prevail? Obviously, a notification cannot supersede the act. So it would be the act which would prevail and a person would not be able to get the claim. There are several other ramifications. Several industries have said that because of the economic crisis, they are no longer able to pay salaries. Several companies have reduced the salary by 30 to 50%. Now let us consider what would be the situation in such a case, particularly in urban areas like Mumbai, where the cost of a flat or real estate is terribly high. There will be thousands and thousands of people who will have taken a housing loan. The money for the loan has to be repaid in EMIs or installments spread over several years, and almost half the salary goes towards repayment of the EMI. Now, if your salary is reduced by half, what will the person have in hand? His entire income will go towards repayment of the loan, leaving him with nothing in hand for his day-to-day livelihood. And that is provided he is lucky enough to still continue to have a job. So, meanwhile, there will be companies, financial institutions, which will brand people as defaulters, which will spoil their credit rating, which will seize their vehicles and their flats, term innocent people as defaulters, and get away with it. While the common man will be suffering in this way, the government has amended the Securitization Act, and it has said that now defaulters would be those who have not paid over 1 crore or more. The original limit for filing these proceedings was 1 lakh rupees. Directly from 1 lakh, it has been increased to 1 crore. Why the difference? So institutional defaulters will be getting away with duping the citizens of this country, and it is the common man which will be suffering. This notification which I mentioned, which has increased the limit for a defaulter from 1 lakh to 1 crore, was issued in mid-March, when nobody anticipated that the lockdown would be for such a long period. So, unfortunately, while the common man is paying for everything, it is the corporates who are getting away with doing anything and everything with the common man's money. This too will result in litigation. Somebody is bound to challenge it at some point of time. So I think that these are the various dimensions that COVID is going to have on consumers as a whole. Today, consumers are not getting several essential items. What is essential is also not really defined. What are we surviving on literally today? The computer, the laptop, and the mobile. If your computer mouse conks out, or if your mobile conks out, would you be able to get a new computer or a new mobile during this period? It would be very difficult. So sooner or later, the unemployment, the lack of proper regulation, the non-application of mind while trying to stall the progress of corona is all going to have disastrous consequences. Before I end, I would like to just share one particular thought with you. The government continuously talks about social distancing. Correct. Social distancing is required. There is no dispute about that. Now, how are we going about it? We are trying to clamp down on movement and restricting it to maybe 1 or 2 hours a day. So what happens is, people who have to buy their necessities all rush out in that 1 or 2 hour period to buy their provisions. It is like a herd of cattle rushing out to pasture. Social distancing is absolutely disregarded at that time. And in the rush, there is more of a stampede, more of a transmission, cases are increasing, and the situation is getting from bad to worse. So this is ultimately, sooner or later, going to result in litigation in some form or the other. It is going to increase maybe theft, maybe because of unemployment, thefts, robberies, whatnot. And ultimately, people are going to suffer. Litigation will increase. And whether the courts, which are already overburdened, and I believe the backlog has tremendously increased in this short time, whether they'll be able to cope, what is going to happen, only God help us. That's all.
So the first question is, what will happen if an engineer is not coming for repairs to the hospital when there's a 2-month AMC for the ventilators that are already in place in the hospitals?
If the AMC is there for a ventilator and it cannot be repaired, again difficult. Currently, you cannot do anything, but later it would definitely amount to a deficiency in service. It is obviously something that is essential. So there would be no question of an engineer saying that this is non-essential. I was keeping my business closed.
Okay. The next question is, how can a patient sue a doctor for not treating them, since the relationship is of a service provider and has not been established on account of refusal to treat?
There would be certain circumstantial evidence where a person is taken to hospital. The hospital would primarily be responsible in allocating a doctor. So therefore, the hospital would be vicariously liable on behalf of all or any of its doctors. The right to life has been very clearly laid down by the Supreme Court. Even monetary consideration cannot come in the way when it comes to saving the life of a patient. So if a hospital has refused to treat, definitely there is negligence. Of course, in the current situation, fighting is very hard. It is very difficult. But once it ends, you can definitely fight for your rights. You can definitely claim compensation.
And there's just a small follow-up. In such a case, does a patient fall within the scope of the meaning consumer?
Yes, a patient is a consumer, and the law is well settled in the case of Indian Medical Association versus VP Shanta. It's a Supreme Court decision.
Okay. Okay. The next question
is... incidentally, just 1 second, incidentally, even if the new Consumer Protection Act comes into force, though it doesn't specially mention healthcare, because this is a question which is regularly asked to me in various medico-legal seminars. The definition of consumer has not changed. This definition is in 3 parts. It says a person is a consumer for a service of any description. So it is all encompassing. Then comes the middle part, which is illustrative, such as A, B, C, D, etc. It is only by way of illustration. So whether something is mentioned in that or not would not make any difference. And the third part of the definition is the specific exclusion, which is a contract of personal service, which stems from a master-servant relationship or free service. So if it doesn't fall within these two exclusions, a doctor-patient relationship is definitely a contract for personal service, not of personal service. The doctor exercises his own skill, expertise, and judgment, and the patient is a consumer of healthcare services. Then we can move on to the next one.
Okay. The government has given a moratorium for loan repayment, which seems beneficial to clients. How would this affect the financial institutions vis-a-vis a client?
It is only deferring the period and the interest liability gets added. So a moratorium is not really going to help. It simply says that, okay, during this period, you need not pay, but your liability keeps increasing.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, upon whom and what kind of liability can be imposed in the current instance when medical stores in certain states are selling arsenic medicine and label as a COVID out?
It would definitely be an unfair trade practice. First of all, selling any drug, unless an OTC, over-the-counter drug, is allowed, giving arsenic or any other medicine without prescription would be illegal. In fact, there are several companies which have come out with advertisements trying to capitalize even in these times, saying that this such and such medicine is a cure, which is totally incorrect. It is an unfair trade practice. And if somebody were to challenge it, action would definitely be taken. In fact, even now, if you send a Twitter message to the FDA and the Ministry of Health, action will be taken against such people.
Okay. The next question is, if a person has not paid their premium, shall the person be entitled to claim damages in the COVID-19 period?
As I mentioned, the government has said that you can pay the premium subsequently. It would depend on what the insurance company, whether it goes by the circular on humanitarian grounds, or it insists on going by the letter of the law and saying that this notification is invalid. If the notification is held to be invalid, the person would not get the claim.
Okay. And one last question. Can society maintenance matters be taken to the consumer forum?
Yes. As I mentioned, you are a consumer for any service hired for consideration or availed of for consideration. So for maintenance, you are paying maintenance charges to the society. Obviously, you are a consumer. In fact, the Supreme Court in the case of Thirumurugan Cooperative Housing Society has very clearly said that a member of a cooperative society is a consumer. And not only that, it has gone on to elaborate that under the Cooperative Societies Act, a member may not be able to claim compensation. Whereas under the Consumer Protection Act, he can not only redress his grievance, but he can also claim compensation which is not available under the Societies Act. So a person can definitely approach the Consumer Court for that.